Great, everyone, thank you very much. So you'll be pleased to know this is only half an hour. Okay, it's a little taster. We've had the experience of the heavy mob of Jason and Kerry talking about leadership, and this is the kind of the afters really about health creation. So and then you've got the big kind of thing where you've got Simon Hayes, who will be talking from Sport England. So this half an hour, I really want to just get a concept about health creation, because it's not a new concept, but it's been around for a long time, but it's very much gaining momentum. And when we look about neighbourhood health, we'll be seeing health creation kind of going, and you're thinking, what is health creation? So I'm just going to ask, what you think is a good life? Just think of a few things of what a good life is. Just a life that you really enjoy. What would you be doing in that good life? Who are you seeing? What are you feeling? Anyone want to just say, what's a good life to you? Anyone? Variety, yeah. Freedom, yeah. Good health. Anything else? Family and friends.
Having enough resources to live on.
Absolutely, having enough resources to live on. Family and friends, freedom, being happy, yeah. Making choices.
Housing.
Feeling safe.
Housing.
New experiences, yeah, going with a variety. Good health. Now, if you were going to come up to a doctor, of which I am as well, what would they say is a good and healthy life? What would they say?
It can vary on the doctor, but I find it to be much more
More medically focused. So most doctors, when you ask them what is a good and healthy life, is blood pressure is normal, cholesterol is good, you're not going to get diabetes, you're going to do everything, you're going to try and prevent dementia. It's all based on disease, okay? So everything in a doctor's view of things is all about preventing disease, and we talk about prevention, and none of us want disease, so we're not going to argue with that. But if we just did that, we wouldn't have all the things that you've just talked about, because you're not going somewhere. So I'm going to try and help go through and untangle some of this, because someone said, Gary, you said feeling safe. There are three big things that we know from a human being that actually helps us to be absolutely okay. And this goes back hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. So feeling safe, feeling valued, and feeling safe is, let's go right back to the basics. You're alive long enough to reproduce. That's all life cares about, okay? You're alive long enough to reproduce. Feeling valued is you get the best mate. You want your genes to get perpetuated. This is really basic stuff. Or, as a child, you want to get the mother's milk. So you're going to push all your other siblings out the way. So you want to feel valued. It's really set in our DNA, not just us, but all mammals. And actually, human beings are one of the creatures, not all creatures are sociable, but we won the race to become Homo sapiens, winning it because we collaborated. In other words, we were able to do things more efficiently with less energy. Therefore, we needed less food in order to achieve what we wanted. So when you collaborate, you economize on things. So they are deep, deep rooted. And unfortunately, we think we're really clever in the 21st century. We're still based on those three things. And what we've also realized, that you've often thought it was about stressors coming through, giving you acute stress, and we recover from that, which is good, and then we thrive. But going from acute stress to feeling better by coping with those stresses is only going to happen if we feel safe, if you feel... And what we now know from research is that when you feel stressed, it's not so much just stressors, it's the fact that we don't feel safe. So in other words, we're preset when we're born that we have to feel safe, otherwise we'll feel anxious and worried. So it's not stressors coming in that makes us anxious and worried. Of course they do, money worries, health and all sorts of things. But if you don't feel safe, you will feel anxious, and you're thinking, why am I feeling so anxious? I've got nothing to worry about. Everything seems to be okay. And you'll find people saying that. It's because inherently they don't feel completely safe. So that research has come out quite recently. And of course, as a child, if a child doesn't feel safe, their brain is reprogrammed to be constantly vigilant for the rest of their life. So anxiety, mental health will predominate because they haven't feel valued, they don't feel safe, they don't feel they've got that support. So though now that chronic stress builds in. And chronic stress makes you a completely different person. A little bit of science here. We've got a fixed amount of energy to deal with everything. You've got a little bit of proportion there to kind of deal with extra things if suddenly you get stressful, you do a bit of physical activity or do your run. But most of your energy is used up in these two things. This is about the the cells repairing themselves. It's about metabolism going on. It's your body working around. And this is about breathing and about heart rate. You can't avoid those ones. But when you get stressed and chronic stress, that suddenly gets really bigger. And it can't stop your heart and it can't stop your breathing. So what does it do? It takes up all the energy of your repair and growth. So you stop your body now is not replenishing itself. It's on high alert. It's like a company that suddenly goes into financial trouble. All the niceties and all the maintenance of machines and all the things that you do on well-being for staff, that all goes out the window. You're in survival. And that company won't last very long if it doesn't do that because the machines will break down and the staff will leave. That's exactly what happens when you're chronically stressed. Your cells start to build up toxins. Your immune system starts to go down. So you can't stay in that pace for very long. But unfortunately, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel valued, then that will happen. And what else do we do when we get chronically stressed? We get all those emotions. And you think they're all bad emotions. They're not. They're all brilliant emotions for survival. Fear keeps you away from danger. Anxiety keeps you away from danger. Loneliness is to keep you out. If you're in a if you feel there's some health problem, you come away from a crowd, so you're not giving people illnesses. So depression and loneliness are actually a survival mechanism to keep people out. You don't also, suspicion, you don't trust people because when you're chronically stressed, you've no idea who is going to be at you because you don't feel safe. Anger, that's a fight bit. Depression, another sickness behavior. So all of those emotions, we think, oh, if only we could feel less angry, if only I could feel this, if only I could feel that. Your body's trying to protect you. It's doing everything it can to protect you. But unfortunately, you've got this weak health creation, which we'll come on to, don't feel safe. So those are normal. If you're in a relationship with someone and they've got lots of those things, you always think, what a horrible person they can be sometimes. But actually, they're actually trying to, because often they feel threatened, don't feel safe. And it's anyone you work with, any friends you have, you will always notice that. So there's a reason behind it. And then our behaviors all change. Poor sleep. If you don't feel safe, why would you be deeply asleep? A lion's going to come and eat you, or a bloke's going to come, or someone's going to come and stab you. So you have lighter sleep. So your sleep pattern completely gets disrupted. It's protection. You also find that you stop being active. What's the one reason people, hunter-gatherers died? Starvation. So you have to look after every single calorie because that was the commonest cause of death for the last 100,000 years. So why do excess energy? So there's part of the brain that switches off the motivation to be active when you're chronically stressed. You can't go to the gym anymore. You can't do your running. And if you've been brought up in a very deprived area, that will have been inbuilt into you. Motivation to exercise will be zero. But if you get someone to feel safe and they feel valued and they feel they belong, that will undo bit by bit, but slowly. What else do you need to do? You need to get those calories in. Get them in. Sugar, fat, that's what you're looking for. The brain is absolutely going for sugar and fat because it wants as many calories as possible. So you've now got poor sleep, inactivity, and poor diet, which we think are rubbish, but actually they've kept us going for the last 500,000 years, and because it happens with animals as well. So when you're feeling chronically stressed, you're not going to get anyone changing their behaviors very easily. They're just going to go straight back again because their brain is telling them to eat all of those things. And actually even addictions are exactly the same because the energy takes away from the frontal part of the brain, which does our inhibitions. So people who are chronically stressed don't have inhibitions. They find addiction much, much harder. Plus, it also blunts a horrible experience of feeling chronically stressed. So they're normal. Those are all normal behaviors to protect you. So if we look at it, we've got this chronic stress because we've got poor health creation or resilience, negative emotions, unhealthy behaviors. That leads to obesity, gut bone, lots of stress hormones. That goes to all sorts of funny things in the cells of inflammation, which I'm not going to go into now, and then that leads to disease. So in public health, we dive in here, unhealthy behaviors. But what's the point of that when your body's screaming at you to not be active and to eat the wrong things? So we have to go up here. Well, what's the point of trying to tell someone not to be angry when their body's telling them to be angry or anxious or whatever? So you have to go up here. So you treat them with antidepressants thing. Well, what's the point of that? You have to go up here. So you have to start at the top. And that's the health creation. So the definition of health creation, it's been around for a long time. You heard Kerry and Jason just talking. Read those two and you'll find that absolutely matches. It's a process individuals can do to gain a sense of purpose, hope, autonomy or mastery, and control over their lives. And when this happens, their health and well-being start to shift. Or Nigel Crisp, who used to be the head of the NHS and is now in the Lords, it starts with people, not services. And what makes communities is aligned with concepts of human flourishing, about people and communities move towards health. It sits here at the very top. Then you've got the prevention, two different types, medical prevention, which is vaccines and hypertension and things, but this is the lifestyle prevention. And then obviously you've got the treatment. So we're saying to go from treatment to prevention, absolutely, but that's not going to hold unless you go one bit up. And any of you working in the community will know this. That is something you have been probably in your instincts, you know that you can't tell someone to become active unless they're really enjoying their life, etc. So the NHS is disease focused. It's about prevention. It's about blood pressures, tablets, vaccines, all good. God, I'm not going to say don't do all of that, but it's very different. When we talk about prevention, everyone actually gets quite anxious. You've got on the internet, if you don't do this, you're going to get dementia. If you don't do that, if you don't eat that, you're going to get diabetes. If you don't do that, your children are never going to prosper. Oh my God, what am I meant to eat? What am I meant to drink? What am I meant to do? How much activity? Should I do the aerobics? Should I do high intensity? Should I do this? And we start to get real muddled. We're being chased by these horrible diseases and we're running and running and running and running, trying to get away from them, or even an early death. And our life is a complete worry about what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing because we're worrying. But where are we heading? We've got nowhere heading. We're just running. We're running and running and running to stop these diseases from catching up with us. That's not a very nice place to be. That makes us actually quite anxious. And actually what has happened in schools, these are 3 massive studies done in different parts of the world, thousands and thousands of children where they went in to do mental health training and mindfulness for the children. They taught all the teachers to give mindfulness to prevent mental health. What was the outcome? Nothing. In fact, here, those children who are more vulnerable in the more deprived communities have got worse, significantly worse, because you paraphrased it in a disease of mental health, and therefore you highlighted one of those horrible hooded horsemen chasing you, now has got a name to it, which makes it even worse because you now know. So it's all framed on disease. What you want, it's all placed in Italy here, is a destination. So where we're running to is going to be more important than where we're running from. And if we can get that destination, which is one of the things you were talking about, a good life, family, friends, feeling safe, all of those things, if we can get a destination, that makes suddenly the world very different. Then we've got momentum, we know where we're going. And once we get there, all of those things that we're trying to do of diet and physical activity start to get easier and easier and easier until it become normal, as opposed to trying to make it happen. Now, health creation is in 3 domains. The people around you, that can help massively. The place around you, making sure you feel safe, and having inbuilt purpose in your life of where you're going and what you're doing. And you can put them onto a little matrix here. So you've got the safe, valued, and belong on the left, and you've got the people, purpose, place on there. And then we heard about going at the speed of trust. Trust is really, really important. So is love, so is empathy. Everything in that top left-hand corner is all about feeling safe with people. You've then got the valued, and that's being listening to people, making sure they feel really valued, they're feeling they're respected, they feel they've been understood. You may not agree, you may not be able to help them, but you get it. You value them, you value what they're doing. And finally, the belong, that's a community. But it's not just a community. Some people actually are quite shy. Some people actually don't like people. They prefer dogs. Hands up who prefers dogs than people. So community is about being at least there's someone there for you if you're in trouble. So it could be 1 or 2 people, it could be a whole community, and it's family and it's friends. And then in the purpose, feeling safe is having that hope and optimism and control, which we mentioned, means and resources, so you can get away from danger, but you've got inbuilt. You're not being controlled in a controlling relationship or anything like that. And values we forget, but if we go against our values, we actually get quite stressed. So if you're in a job where your values aren't aligned, people actually get depression and can get down quite quickly. So we forget how important it is to maintain our values. And a place has got to feel secure. Psychological safety is the thing in workplaces. Resonance is about heritage and about the place you're in, but you've got nature, and then finally you've got rootedness of belonging. And in the middle is a kind of outcome of real fulfillment. If you wrap yourself around, now at any point in your life, some of these will be strong, some of these will be weak. What you're trying to do is to at least have enough balance so that you get that middle part of fulfillment. But even better, we can ask questions. Now you can't read those, but I can send them, but this is, most people are trustworthy, agree or disagree. The friendships and connections I have with other people mean a lot to me. There's a group of community I feel I belong to. I feel control in my life. I've been optimistic about my future, a fulfilling life, sharing my time with others. This is an important one. Overall, I think my neighbourhood is a good place to bring up children. I enjoy exploring a neighbourhood. I want to remain a resident of this neighbourhood for many years. So what happens when we start to ask people those questions? Well, we can start to map it out. This is Ipswich. Sorry, it's not Essex. But some of you know that I'm also Chief Executive of Intelligent Health, where we do Beat the Street. We can ask lots of people lots of questions, and they tell us, because they get 100 points for their team. So they give us lots of questions. So we can get down to one street. So this road here has got really low health creation. But then we can look at each question underneath and find out why is that health creation so bad. Is it the people? Is it the purpose? Is it the community? Is it the place? And you can start to go down. This is another one in Ipswich. This is very, very low health creation. There's a strong relationship to IMD, to deprivation, but it's not complete. This is inactivity, so you can see of adults, but look at the inactivity of children, wraps right around that. And what we're finding is those parents are stressed. They don't like their children to go out. They want to hold them tight. So those children aren't going outdoors at all. They're in their bedrooms doing on the computer, whatever, because they feel stressed themselves. So it's even worse for the children because they're depending on the adults. But just as a concept, look at the life satisfaction, which is one of the ONS. That's life satisfaction in the same place. You can see those 2 wards at the top. No real correlation at all with inactivity and no correlation at all with children. So this captures something quite different. And that's why it's so important. And then we can plot different people. So deprivation, these are the questions. Those are the normal, and we've got about 46,000 people now that we've actually asked. Look at this one here for deprivation. Overall, I think my neighbourhood is a good place to bring up children. It's a surrogate marker for safety. Because if you're a burly 30-year-old bloke, you're not going to say, I don't feel safe, but you will say, my child doesn't feel safe. So it's a way of saying, it's a way of getting the safety. So, but look at here. In the most deprived areas, do they feel in control of their life? Yeah, they do. The suits coming in. Clear off, guys. We're actually okay. We don't need you. We just want you to make this neighbourhood a better place. We want you to repair the lights and clear the dog shit and get those boarded windows sorted out and all of that. We want you to do that bit. We're fine in many ways. Look at the other one that was bad. I want to remain resident. No, they want to go. That's not in every deprivation area. But I feel optimistic about the future. Absolutely, they do actually. They feel in control. So let's not patronise some of those areas of deprivation. Let's sort out the things that they need. Let's listen to them, value them, and get those things sorted. So this helps. Physical activity is all the way through. Everything is a little bit down. So inactive and diabetes is about not feeling in control, not feeling optimistic, so very different from a deprivation, and not having a fulfilling life. So they're chronically stressed, and that leads to diabetes, as we saw. And if you're a woman in a deprived area with a long-term condition, everything. You imagine that woman, those women there in this group are desperately trying to get into safety. Their body is absolutely whirring away with emotions and behaviors to try and pull them back to safety. There's a huge gap, so no wonder they become ill. No wonder their life expectancy is going down. No wonder their actual healthy life expectancy has gone down even more, because all of that stress trying to pull them back is removing all that repair that's going on in their cells. So they're not repairing cells, so they're developing disease. And overall, I think my neighbourhood is a good place to bring up children is by far the worst. So we have to listen to people and find out what is it we can do. And mental health is pretty everywhere, except for they do want to stay, possibly because they haven't got the energy to move. And therefore they're stuck, as opposed to not wanting to move. And when we actually do a beat street, just by getting thousands and thousands of people outdoors talking to each other, what moves? Trust. Trust goes up a lot. We haven't done anything about trust. We've just got people outdoors talking to each other. And suddenly they feel it's not quite a bad place as it is, as it was, they thought it was. So let's think of something slightly different about green space. Again, I've got some of the data for Chelmsford and others, which I'll show you. So this is Salford, and these are all the areas that have got no access to green space according to the Angst Natural England model. And then that's done by ward. But we can start to say through the Health Creation Index, what happens if we increased green space by 10%? We've got every single place 10% of green space. We'd actually reduce inactivity by that number in every ward. So you can get down to ward level of trying to understand, and then you can find out what are the mediators that go between green space and its health creation. So from green space, if you just build green space, there's no correlation at all to inactivity. But if you look at mediators of connection to people, feeling safe, all that place, suddenly that correlation then comes into action. So building infrastructure on its own doesn't do the job. You've got to activate it. You've got to make sure that there's something going on there. So there is a correlation, but it's not very big. In Chelmsford, again, there's no correlation. And the only thing that really activated all health creation was nature connection. So Chelmsford actually has got very few areas where there's it goes below the thresholds of Natural England. But if you built a whole lot of new green space, you'd make very, very little difference. If you got people to connect to nature, then suddenly their activity levels start to go up. Every single place is different. Every single ward is different. And as we heard in the leadership things, you have to listen, you have to start, because building green space might be the easiest thing in the world to think, we're going to do it across the whole of the country. No. We're going to do it, okay, we'll do it the whole of Essex. No. Whole of Chelmsford. No, that's not going to work. It might work in one or two places, and then you've got a different matter of understanding how that community works. So we really have to go down. And that's how green space would impact on inactivity. If it was 10% green space, this is in Salford, you'd get this amount of, and it's a funny old scale, this inactivity would drop 30% green space at 50% green space. If you did health creation on its own by 10%, you'd get that. So you'd have to get 30% of green space to get the equivalent of, so you can start to work out where the priorities should be. And then each ward is a very different ward. Some of them have got, some of them are very deprived, and actually this one's about trust. If we increase trust by a certain amount in these wards, what would happen? Well, in the very deprived wards, not a lot. You've got to get the infrastructure right first. Think of the suits turning up to Clacton. You can't just suddenly put trust in there. You've got to show that you mean business. So you listen to what they want and you start building the infrastructure, then trust. So this second group, which is the B wards, this one, they've gone past the infrastructure. Now trust can make a massive difference on inactivity. So inactivity will now improve because you've increased the trust. And this is all done by data. So this is not people thinking it up. And then these people are very affluent areas, and any opportunity like a new football club will actually get lots of people, but actually you won't move up physical activity because they're already active. So you'll get lots and lots of action in those less deprived wards, but it won't shift physical activity that much. It's those amber wards where all that trust should be put in, and those darker wards, you've got to listen to them. So that's that really. So this basically is how health creation goes. That you've got health creation at the top, then you've got prevention, all important, not saying you don't do prevention, and then you have treatment. But we have to do all three. We can't just do prevention and treatment, because otherwise you're running away from disease and you're not running towards anywhere. And then you can read all that, so I'm not going to go through it because it's very long.